Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Bad Iron Podcast. I'm here with you on Friday, October 4th, getting ready for another college and NFL football weekend. Fall's officially here. We took a weekend off last week. Jeff and Fonte and we all decided we wanted to take a little break. Fonte, of course, is not with us today either. He decided to play golf again. I think that's probably more important to him than making picks and talking about good stories. But nonetheless, we're going to go over a few games today. That's all we're going to do. Make it quick, short and quick, to the point. See if we can start to build on the momentum of the last 2 weeks where we've had some pretty good success. Both of my teams, the Chiefs, undefeated in the NFL, and my Cats took down Ole Miss. And I wish I would have been on here because I would have given you the money line in that game. I picked them to beat Ole Miss. Plus a 17-point underdog. That would have paid off very well for everybody. But what a great game that was. And then everybody, hopefully you got to watch some of the Alabama-Georgia game. That was incredible as well. The over in that hit easily. That was what I was on for that game because I figured those two teams are way too athletic, way too talented on offense. And one of the teams has a pretty good receiver that's only 17 and he won't turn 18 till February. I think the Chiefs are going to try to pick him up from Alabama because they need a wide receiver. But let's get into some of the games. We've got a game tonight. I'm going to go through these pretty quick. I don't love all of them. I'll tell you the ones I really do like. But I just want to touch on a lot of these. So the first game is my wife's alma mater, Oregon Ducks, tonight. They're hosting Michigan State. Michigan State, nobody really knows what they are. This is a game of the new Big Ten. These are exciting to me. I love games like this. We have a few more on the schedule this weekend. It's not a great schedule, but there are some interesting games just because of the new conference alignment with Oklahoma, Texas going to the SEC. But this weekend we got some new Big Ten games that are happening. I don't really care about the ACC and Miami Cal. I mean, that's not even a game, is it? I can't believe that game day's going there, but they are, which is weird. But Oregon tonight is a 24-point favorite against Michigan State. Michigan State, you would think, they got crushed by Ohio State last week. Ohio State's really good. It was on Ohio State's field. It doesn't actually matter where that game was. Ohio State's just got a great offense. And Oregon has got the Buckeyes next week. So they got them at home next week. That's probably, if not the biggest, one of the top two biggest games on Oregon's schedule if they want to get to the playoffs. So I think they're going to be looking ahead a little bit, thinking about that game. So I think Michigan State keeps it close and keeps it within the 24. This is one I like, but I probably won't bet it because my wife loves Oregon, so she'll be cheering for Oregon. But it's one to think about with Oregon, I think, looking ahead to Ohio State next week. We also got UNLV and Syracuse tonight. We haven't had a chance to talk about the UNLV quarterback quitting the team, basically, because he didn't get paid. I think it's going to happen a lot more. We've already seen it happen a few more times. UNLV plays Syracuse. And in this game, there are two really good offenses. Syracuse, you probably haven't watched them yet. They got a really good quarterback. They put points on the board. Neither team has a great defense, so I'm going with the over 55 in this game. Friday night, Las Vegas, putting up some lights, some sevens on the slot machine. We're going to go over 55 in this game. I don't really have a feeling about who might win. UNLV has looked good even without the quarterback last week. Going on to Saturday, Texas A&M is hosting Missouri. Missouri, a top 10 team, very lucky to beat a lowly Vanderbilt team last week at home. Maybe they were looking ahead to this game. Texas A&M is only a 2-point favorite at home. They beat a good Arkansas team last week. So I'm taking A&M minus the 2 to beat Missouri. I think I said this at the beginning of this year in one of the early podcasts that I think Missouri is in for regression. So far, they haven't gotten the loss yet, but they barely beat Boston College at home and they barely beat Vanderbilt at home. That to me says they're regressing a little bit, even though they have one of the best receivers in the nation, if not the best receiver in the nation. But I think going down there to play the 13th man. I got basketball on the mind. 12th man. I'll get it right here in a second. The 12th man at Texas A&M. Maybe they'll have 13, and I think Texas A&M gets the W and beats Missouri, covers a 2-point spread. Louisville had a tough game last week. Louisville is now hosting SMU. after a tough loss at Notre Dame last week, where somehow Notre Dame won with like only 11 first downs. There was some ridiculous stat with that. I don't think either of those teams are any good, Louisville or Notre Dame. I think they're both overrated. I don't think it's at Louisville. I don't think the Louisville fans, they're a party uh, fan base. I don't think they're going to care about SMU coming in. They don't really even know who SMU is. I bet you half the Louisville fans don't know what state SMU is in, let alone what city it's in or what SMU stands for. I'd bet at least, well, I won't say how much I'll bet, but I bet you they don't know. And SMU has been surprisingly good despite losing, coach and a few other important players. They've stayed strong this year and played very well. They're going to keep it within the 7 at Louisville. I think SMU plus 7 at Louisville. If it goes below 7, I probably wouldn't take it. But I like SMU to cover that because I think Louisville's going to come a little bit on a hangover after losing that game last week to Notre Dame. And they'll come in a little slow, a little sluggish. I talked earlier about Georgia, Alabama, an incredible game. My Cats almost beat Georgia the week before, 13-12. If they could have only picked up one of the 3 fumbles that Georgia put on the ground. So Georgia did not look great against Kentucky, but I think I shared a stat, and if I didn't, then here it is. I don't remember how many years this has been, but I believe it's been over the last 10 years. Georgia has only failed to score 20 points 3 times in an SEC game. 3 times in 10 years. All 3 were against Kentucky. So it's just not a great matchup for Georgia. So I had Georgia coming in there and scoring a lot of points against Alabama, which they did. Now, they didn't get the win because it was on Alabama's field, that amazing receiver. But I think Georgia bounces back this week and gets right. They play Auburn at home. They're a 22-point favorite. They got to lay the lumber down since they've got a loss on the board. And they're going to roll Auburn and their new quarterback this week by, I would say, more than 30. But the line is only 22. Give me Georgia minus 22 versus Auburn. South Carolina is playing Mississippi. Mississippi, who just lost to my Cats. South Carolina's at home. They beat my Cats somehow in the second week. They beat Kentucky 31-6 in a fluke game, in my opinion. Their only loss was at home to LSU after being up by 2 touchdowns. And they're getting 10 points at home against Mississippi. Now, Mississippi will bounce back and play a lot better, but I just think after seeing Mississippi last week, this is a bad matchup for them. South Carolina's front 7 is the strength of the team. I can attest to that after watching them against my Kentucky Wildcats, and that's what hurt Mississippi. They were unable to run the ball against Kentucky, and so that front 7 was able to tee off and get a good rush. So Mississippi may stay close. They may even win the game, but I don't think they're going to beat South Carolina by more than 10 points. So give me South Carolina at home plus 10 against Mississippi. This is one of my best bets of the day. I think Mississippi might squeak out a win, but I think South Carolina is able to keep close at home. And Alabama, going back to the Alabama-Georgia game, they play at Vandy. They play here in Nashville. No fans will show up for this game from a Vandy standpoint. I mean, there is no home field advantage. It'll be 70-30 Alabama fans. It's supposed to be beautiful weather here in Nashville tomorrow. Alabama is coming off a big win, so I usually bet against that. So I'm not going to bet the spread here, but Vandy has been able to move the ball. And Alabama showed that they were vulnerable to some things last week against Georgia. So I'm going over here, over 54. And honestly, Alabama might get 54 in this game. But I think Vandy can get a couple touchdowns on the board. So give me Bama, Vandy, over 54. The defenses won't care in this game. Alabama is going to come in a little sluggish on defense. They won't be able to help themselves, but the score Milroe's so good, over 54. Tennessee at Arkansas. I have gone back and forth on this one a lot. Obviously, as a Kentucky fan, I don't have much honor for Tennessee. I'm not a fan of the orange. They're going into Arkansas, and they are giving 13 points to Arkansas. They're coming off a bye. Tennessee is in that tough Oklahoma game where they went on the road and beat Oklahoma. I believe it was 25-15 against a good Oklahoma defense. What people don't know about Tennessee this year is that they are much improved on defense. And if they can contain the Arkansas quarterback, which I think that's the strength of the Tennessee defense, is their defensive line, then Arkansas is going to struggle to score. And if you struggle to score against Tennessee, you're toast. Tennessee's going to come off that bye and have an offensive game plan. And I was originally going to take Arkansas plus 13, and then I saw Tennessee's off the bye, giving them 2 weeks to prepare against Arkansas. Arkansas's had some really close, tough losses. So I'm going Tennessee minus 13 on the road. I don't usually do that, but I think they're going to put up so many points that Arkansas can't keep up. Next game, and I don't like the ACC, but I'm not sure what's going on with Vegas and Virginia Tech this year. They have a lot of players back, yeah, but that doesn't mean they're going to be good. And so far, they have proven not to be. And they came off that heartbreaking loss at Miami, which, who knows? Maybe that was a touchdown in the end zone. I don't know. Doesn't matter. They're coming off that heartbreaking loss. Now they got to travel all the way across the country to Stanford and play a Stanford team who's solid, not great, but solid. Probably wanting to make a statement here against the ACC, and they're getting 8.5 points. Virginia Tech coming off that heartbreak loss, traveling all the way across the country after being in Miami and losing that close game. This is a little bit of an overreaction to Virginia Tech playing Miami close. Stanford has played some good teams and has played strong. They're getting 8.5 at home. I mean, Virginia Tech might win, but they're not going to win by more than 8.5, in my opinion. I like Stanford plus 8.5 at home versus Virginia Tech. The next game is a team I've bet on a lot. It's Nebraska hosting Rutgers this week. Those sound like that sounds like a great game to watch. I think it's going to be a slobber knocker. But for some reason, Rutgers is getting 7 points at Nebraska. Nebraska may be playing better this year, but not better enough to beat Rutgers by 7 points. Rutgers can control the game on the ground. They have a really good defense. Rutgers stays within 7 points at Nebraska. Washington, Michigan, another big game. Does this remind you of any game that may have happened last year towards the end of the year, or actually earlier this year in January? Washington loses their coach. Only loss of the year was to rival Washington State, who has proven to be very good. Washington is a 1-point favorite at home at night to Michigan. This is another one of those great new Big Ten games that I'm going to love to watch, because otherwise we would only get to see it in a playoff. But now we get to see it on Washington's home field. They get to show the nation what it's like to come to Washington and play at night. They're going to take down Michigan, in my opinion. I think Washington -1. It's a must-win game for Washington if they want to have hopes of making the 12-team playoff later this year. It is for Michigan as well, I think, after getting absolutely demolished by Texas earlier in the year. But man, going to Washington, trying to win a night game there, give me Washington -1 at home versus Michigan. This one might end up 14 to 12. I'm not sure. But I like Washington at home and that crowd at a night game. My buddy Fonte's not on this podcast. I really wish I knew who he would take in Iowa State Baylor, but my guess is he would take Iowa State. Iowa State's at home versus Baylor this week. They're 11-point favorites. Iowa State's got an incredible defense. They are playing very well. And to me, Baylor looks like a team that has just had some really close losses and just cannot get over the hump. I think they're going to be tired of doing that. They need a bye in a big way. Baylor does, I think. And this might be the game that shows us, hey, they need a week off. Iowa State holds them down, covers the 11 points at home against Baylor. Got 2 more to go through. One more SEC game, although it's not an SEC versus SEC, but Central Florida at Florida. Florida is a 2-point favorite versus Central Florida, who's been a strong team. Florida, we have talked about on this podcast, is a dumpster fire, but this is their chance to right the ship. They're off a bye week. They need a win as desperately as anybody to save their coach's job and to keep their bowl hopes alive, honestly. But they're coming off a bye. Florida is getting 2 points at home. If you can get 3, I definitely take it. But I'm going money line. I think Florida rights the ship after the bye. They've had 2 weeks to prepare, and they take down Central Florida at home. If it wasn't for the first 5 games of this year, I bet Florida would be a 10-point favorite, although Central Florida is good. Give me the Gators to win outright against Central Florida. And lastly, we're going to go back to the Big 12. And I don't have Fonte here, but I'm just concerned about Kansas. They have regressed so far. They won so many close games last year, covered the spread so many times because nobody expected them to do anything. And that has flipped this year. They're one of the worst teams against the spread this year. They've only won one game so far, and it was against Poop State. I don't even remember who it was. It was a terrible team in the first game. They are reeling. I'm worried that they're giving up. They got to go all the way out west to Arizona State. Arizona State is also coming off a bye. At home, at night, late game, Arizona State is -2 versus Kansas. They put them into a tailspin, in my opinion. I like Arizona State -2 versus Kansas. I'm going to have some NFL picks, too, probably on Sunday morning early. Knock on wood, I've been doing very well in the NFL. That's one of the hardest ones to do, but I've been doing very well there. Hopefully that continues. And we continue with good picks for college football. You all have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. And talk to you next time on the Bad Iron Podcast.